You're listening to episode 74 of the Comics Pals. We're a group of comic book journalists and friends who record a podcast together because we don't talk enough about comics in our daily lives.
Thanks, Sean. Welcome to a quick Pals Action News update. It's been 72 hours since fellow pal Phil Casey has been missing. If you or anyone else knows his whereabouts, please call 1-800-PALS-TIPS. Once again, that's 1-800-PALS-TIPS.
Which one of us is going to get that call?
I didn't think that far ahead.
It's the big red phone, Cale.
Yeah, it's a big red phone. Yeah.
I just need to know because I'm going to get like international charges and I can't afford. I'm going to need to be reimbursed.
Fine, we'll do call forwarding to the American phones. All right, it's not a big deal.
But what if they call Phil's?
It's
phone?
not a big deal. Oh, what if they do call Phil? Well, I guess we could call Phil, right, and just ask him.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that none of us actually want to receive that call. So don't call.
I want to listen from listeners. Wait, I want to hear from listeners.
Okay, so
that was a fun bit.
Yeah, almost a fun bit. Almost. Close. Butchered again by Marco, who has now proven...
my execution was well. I did that well.
Your execution was well. Okay.
Oh, man.
I talk good.
I talk goodly.
You can definitely push it into a good now.
Oof, all right.
I don't even understand that.
Me neither, but that's okay.
Moving right along.
Because you could push it into a well, but he said it was well instead of good.
Oh, that's a thinker, but also a stinker.
Yeah.
Keep up.
All right, I'll try. So, happy to be here. Happy to be doing the show. Happy to be with you guys. And we have a lot to talk about, so we're not going to belabor it too much, but... there are plenty of ways you guys can find us. We are on Apple Podcasts, where we are currently a 5-star rated podcast. That's never going to change, even if it does. I'm still going to say it. So we're
going to live forever.
Right.
Yeah, because you don't fucking know. What do you look?
Exactly. So you can continue that trend if you want. We are also on SoundCloud, where you guys are very good to us, so let's keep that going as well. You can find us all over social media at The Comics Pals. You can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com. And last but not least, we are on YouTube, where you can leave us a comment, leave us a like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, which we always are appreciative of. Now, I do want to mention that we have a Jessica Jones review for Season 2 out now. Pete and Phil carried that one for us, and from what I hear, I haven't had the opportunity to listen quite yet, but from what I hear, it's really, really good, so you guys are going to want to check that out if you have watched Jessica Jones Season 2, or you just want to hear two of us discuss what is a very, very interesting season of television.
Yeah, we do have a spoiler-free bit in the beginning, too, so if you want to hear our elevator pitch on, if you should check the show out or whatever, you can go listen to that, too.
There you go. So, with that being said, let's jump right into a question that I have for you guys.
Oh, does that mean it's time for a little segment called The Random Question of the Week?
Actually, I think what it means is that it's time for a little segment called Blow Our Ears Out.
Yeah, that's
Turn your
not going to be
microphone
fun
down.
that's not going to be fun to edit.
I don't know why it just turned itself up so loud. I see it spike on my audio, it jumped.
We
10
heard it
decibels.
spike on your, we heard it.
I don't know what happened, man.
I don't hear anything.
Anymore?
What?
And
That was nice. I like that. So,
What?
moving right along. Oh god! If Phil was here, he would take that all the way. In wrestling, there's a bit that Stone Cold Steve Austin does where he just says "what" between every sentence break. So, yeah.
I hope I learn to read lips.
Sign language.
What?
All right. So can I ask my random question?
What?
Huh?
Can I ask my random question of the week?
Hang on, let me turn my volume up. I don't...
Oh my god. Enough with the bit. Can I ask my random question of the week?
I'm going to have to borrow my grandma's
All right,
hearing
I'm
aids.
just
I
gonna
can't.
ask it, and
Yeah, no, I
whoever
mean,
can
okay, go
actually
ahead.
hear, whatever. So a little later, we're going to talk about Vin Diesel's new role in an upcoming comic book film, and that inspired the question in my mind of: is there any actor who has a role in a superhero film that you would like to see play another superhero or supervillain? Who would it be, and which character would they play, and why would you choose them?
So an actor who is already a superhero,
right,
playing another one.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it could be a villain. It's just someone who has a role in one of these movies.
Yeah.
Does this extend into TV or just movies?
Sure. Let's do TV as well. Why not?
I'd like to see the actor who plays Legion as like Moon Knight.
Ooh, good one. That's very tight casting though.
Kind of, yeah.
They're
like
very similar
yeah.
characters.
They are kind of, yeah. But still, I feel like he really excels at in that character,
amazing.
and he's yeah.
Okay. Good.
This isn't my answer, but tangentially related to that one, Aubrey Plaza as Kate Bishop, I always thought would be really good.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. I do like that.
I feel so old. I have to Google who that is. I have no idea who that is.
Aubrey Plaza?
That's Hawkeye.
Or no, Aubrey Plaza is not Hawkeye, Cale.
Listen, I'm just covering all our bases.
Wait. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. I'm hip now. I got it.
I'm hip.
All right, so Cale, what is your answer?
So my initial thought was, in ever the scenario we got like a Bart Allen movie, like an Impulse movie, it would be cool to see Tom Holland as Inertia, sort of Impulse Kid Flash's doppelganger Reverse Flash.
Cool.
And just to clarify, the actor's name was Dan Stevens for Legion.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I'm really having a hard time coming up with one. Sean, can you give yours too?
Sure.
Buy me a little more time here.
This is like, I mean, you guys are going to probably hate this take, but I would really be interested in seeing what Benedict Cumberbatch would do as Tony Stark.
Yeah, that's a terrible take. Yeah, that can fuck off right into the toilet.
I can see it. I don't think he'd be my first choice, but I could see it.
Yeah. I can see it, but same. I don't think he'd be the first choice.
He's like a little drier than I think I'd want my Tony Stark to be, but
I feel like he could get there.
Yeah,
probably.
I could see it for sure. Dude, I'm really coming up empty on this one.
This is a tough question.
Yeah, like I'm like good with a quick take, but I'm having a hard time thinking of one of these actors that I don't like have so cemented in that role, you know? Like, I feel like the easy answer would be to try to pick somebody who's just a voice, you know, like have Bradley Cooper play somebody else.
Could do that.
But it's like, who would I want Bradley Cooper to play is the question, you know?
Green Lantern.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yo.
Weirdly.
No, that's not bad.
That's been a casting rumor as long as they've been talking about Green Lantern. So
I've got one actually. I think he'd be a good. I'd like to see him as Green Arrow. I feel like he could totally. I feel like he could totally pull off Oliver. I've never been a huge fan of like the Arrow TV show. I watched like the first 2 seasons, and like Stephen Amell is a fine actor, I guess, but I don't know, for whatever reason it didn't click with me. I feel like Bradley Cooper though, he could maybe do it. Maybe he's the guy.
Pre 52 goatee hat.
Yeah.
Green Arrow.
Yeah.
That would be
with
pretty
like,
good.
you know, his like hair, you know, he's got kind of a similar kind of like slicked, you know, back messy blonde mop kind of.
Fucking
I feel like you could
that.
totally make that work.
Here's the weird thing. I am hearing Matthew McConaughey's voice with my vision of that character. And
that wouldn't be a bad choice either, though.
Yeah.
So Matthew McConaughey's voice with Bradley Cooper's body as Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Huh. I can see it. And
you know what? I don't hate it.
Cale, just to tickle your fancy, I just thought John Hamm as the Spirit.
Who has John Hamm played?
John Hamm's never been a superhero.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, if we did a casting,
Since we're
like
playing
that,
this game,
Can we just
anyway.
put John Hamm in a superhero movie already, guys? Like, I really feel like there's about 12 characters he can play, and it would be awesome.
There's only one, and it's Batman.
It's Batman.
It needs to be.
Dude,
Batman.
I want to see him play Superman.
I mean, that's fine. You're wrong.
It's Batman.
Or Mr. Fantastic.
It's Batman.
No.
That's definitely wrong.
Pepper those temples. He'll be good, man.
All right. Well, I would love to hear what you guys at home think about this. And of course, you can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com with your answer to the random question of the week. So, we've got some pals pulls for you guys. Starting off with Marco and Pete. You guys both chose Saga number 50.
Yeah. Saga is Saga. It's Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples. It is the like one of the best works coming out of Image. It's always consistently really solid and fun, and the new arc is really cool and really taking an interesting turn. And I think I don't know, Pete, are you caught up at all?
I think I want to say I'm about 6 issues behind.
Okay.
But I have them all, so I'm like ready to kind of shotgun them and read 50.
Okay. Then never mind. I was gonna ask you something, but we can hold off until you read it.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm very much looking forward to it, though. I imagine that there'll be something special, considering it's a bit of a landmark for the book. But yeah, I mean, like, to Marco's point, Saga is one of the best books being published, even at its worst. So,
yeah,
you should be reading it if you're not already.
Mm-hmm.
If you've lapsed, jump back on.
Yeah, I think I sent it in like the group chat a couple weeks back when I finished Saga 49. I was like, hands down, this single issue should be nominated for an Eisner. Like,
I do remember you saying that.
It was solid stuff.
Cool.
So.
I don't pay attention to what you say, so.
Unlike the listeners. Hey.
Pete also chose Void Trip number 5.
Yep, Void Trip's another book I've talked about a bit. We did a episode about it before it came out, but we had read the first issue at that time. So go check that out. We interviewed the creative team behind it, Ryan O'Sullivan and Plaid Klaus, friends of the show, and it's a good book. I'm a little behind on it as well. I think I read the first 3 issues, and I liked the first 2. Third one was a little bit, left something to be desired, but I am excited to read 4 and now finish it up on 5, and hopefully they stick the landing.
Yeah, I am interested in what they do, but I mentioned it on the show. This series kind of took a dip for me somewhere around issue 2, 3, so we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
So from Cale, we have Damnation, Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider number 1.
So this is Chris Sabella's Ghost Rider one-off that he mentioned last week on the show. I am not a big Ghost Rider fan. He's got a cool enough premise, but I've never gone out of my way to read a comic. And then obviously there was the Nick Cage movie, about a decade back, and that's the extent of my
series. They made 2 of those.
Fair. But those are the extent of my knowledge of Ghost Rider. So it's a one shot written by somebody I know. I'll give that a shot.
Yeah, I definitely see Sabella being able to pull off a solid Ghost Rider, especially in a one shot scenario. Like you, I have no real interest in the character, but for Sabella, if I see Sabella on a book, I'm picking it up. So
I'll give it a shot.
Like, it's funny because you say that, and like thinking about it, I actually think he's probably one of the few writers that really could pull off a Ghost Rider that I might be interested in reading. Just because, like, I feel like he could get the tone right, but he also generally isn't interested in like super, like, like macho, edgy leading men, which is kind of like I feel like where Ghost Rider loses steam for me is like I feel like he's just a little too like 90s edgelord. So it's like I'd like to see what he did with it.
Depends on which Ghost Rider it is, because
I'm speaking in totally broad strokes as someone who hasn't read, like I don't think I've ever read a single Ghost Rider issue. I've only read him in like the context of other people's books, you know.
So Cale also chose Lockjaw #2.
So I listened to our pals, the Longbox Boys, review the first issue of this series, and it's basically about Lockjaw. Oh shoot, let me try and get this right. It's Lockjaw going to help D-Man from like killing himself, and he ends up teleporting with D-Man to like an alien civilization to like help them like save the world after like a really bad breakup or something.
What?
So yeah, like the initial this, what I never saw any of this in like the initial premise, so when it was announced they were doing a Lockjaw series, I was like, what? But I'm kind of into it. Like, it sounds actually really good, so I'll be picking up Lockjaw #1 and #2.
Cool. Do you know who's on that book, or?
I want to say Daniel Kibblesmith, but that sounds wrong.
That's okay. We'll look it up, and in the meantime, why don't you talk about Come Into Me?
So, Come Into Me is a Black Mask title. I actually don't know anything about it, but as I was looking into the solicits for this week, the premise really caught my eye. So this is what it said: when two become one, who's in control? What secret can you keep? Worse yet, what does it mean for the body that holds them together?
Ooh, that sounds cool. Like some body horror stuff?
Yeah. So this is another issue #2 that I will be picking up this week.
All right. And you were right on the money with Lockjaw, Daniel Kibblesmith, and with art by Carlos Villa and Roberto Poggi. So, cool.
Come Into Me is written by Lonnie Nadler and Zach Thompson. Illustrated by this is oh man.
Ready for this segment on the show where Cale gets someone's name wrong.
Get someone's name wrong. Peter Kowalski.
Okay.
That's not.
It's the Russian Peter though, so it might be like
a P-E-T.
Piotr.
Yeah, it's Peter.
Piotr.
We're in America. It's Peter.
Yeah, you naturalize it.
Oh, yikes.
All right. So I chose Dark Knight's Metal #6. Dark Knight's Metal has been incredible. I mean, rave reviews all over the place for this series. And, if you're not on board, I don't know what you're doing. And this is the end. A lot of people, including Phil, who if he were here right now, he would say this, that Scott Snyder, a lot of people feel like Scott Snyder doesn't stick his landings the best. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull this one off and whether or not he is able to ultimately send off this series properly. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then all of us chose Doomsayclock #4. Finally,
hell yeah!
The series is making its return. It switched to a bi-monthly schedule. Which in this case, bi-monthly means two different things, funnily enough. In this case, it means we're saying it's coming out every other month. So,
unfortunately.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks because the book has been so good and there's so much mystery and intrigue, but it is coming back. So next week, you can expect that we will talk about it in depth.
I'm really excited. The wait has really felt long.
Yeah. So, we're going to jump into the news, and we're going to start with something that is very unfortunate. Meltdown Comics, a legendary comic book store in LA, more than just a comic book store, but, those are the origins, is closing after 25 years of being open. So, Meltdown Comics was a place for nerds of all kinds, comic book fans, lovers of comedy, performers of comedy. The home did all kinds of people for 25 years, and unfortunately now it is going to be closing down March 30th of this year. So, just about a week before it's going to be gone. It's really unfortunate. The politics of the whys it's closing are vast in terms of, where the location, the rebuilding of LA, the realities of the industry, sure. But, Meltdown Comics is an institution, and we're all sad that it's, going to be going away.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I was lucky enough to get to visit it once. I guess 2 years ago now. I was in LA visiting a friend, and I went and took a day trip there. But I can't say I'm surprised that it's closing because, like you said, the location is really not ideal. So while I was there, my friend who I was visiting, there was one day in the 2 weeks I was there that he had to go to work. So while he was doing that, my friend and I, who had traveled out there, decided to go see all the touristy spots. We'd go walk and see the Chinese theater and look at the stars and go to Amoeba Records and go to Meltdown. And Meltdown is the only thing that's not central to the rest of the Hollywood institution, kind of places you want to go while you're there.
Yeah.
And I know, Marco, you said when you were in LA, you couldn't make it out there because it was not anywhere near where you were.
Yeah, basically. It was, I went last year and it was just, hey, I wanted to go, but it's just not convenient and I couldn't make it out.
Yeah, we had to walk pretty deep into a residential area.
Yep.
To get to it, and it was worth the trip. It's a really cool store, but it's definitely not, it's a place that, based on what it is, you'd think that it would be, more centralized, that it would be more primed to be a tourist trap. And I think, to your point, Sean, the way that they've built LA up over the years has been away from that area. It's not a shitty area, but it's an area where people live, and it's not a place that I think non-locals are really going to, unless you are a nerd in LA who decides to make a pilgrimage there,
Right. I wish I had the opportunity to visit myself, but obviously with it closing so soon, that's just not going to happen. But if you are a listener and you live in the area, definitely take it in. You're not going to have much time left to do so. So,
yeah. And if you've got any cool stories about Meltdown, let us know. I was only there the one time, so if it's a store you've been to multiple times or whatever, maybe you went and took in one of the shows or saw them record a Nerdist podcast there or something, we'd love to hear your stories.
Absolutely. So, we got a new Deadpool 2 trailer, another week, another huge trailer dropping, right?
Yeah, they're coming left and right lately, it feels like.
Yep, absolutely. So this one really does kind of peel things back a bit. We get more information about what the movie is going to be about. And we learn that X-Force is a thing in this movie. It's officially stated by Deadpool that the characters who we do see in that sort of dropship are members of X-Force, which Deadpool is creating. I guess he's the christener of that in this film.
Don't you feel like that's a little derivative, though?
What? Sense? No. What are you talking about?
So yeah. What do you guys think of the trailer?
It's an interesting hook that it seems like Cable is going to be the villain.
Right.
I didn't see that coming.
I thought this was
going to be.
He is normally not. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Especially
I don't.
In the content, Deadpool and Cable are they had a series that went for several years, right? That was pretty popular, and it was about them being buddies.
Yeah, my addition to that was going to be that not within that context that I knew of. I think when it was Cable when he first started coming around, he was kind of an X-Men villain. If I'm not mistaken,
he's presented as an antagonist because of the fact that he comes with future knowledge and is attempting to prevent, and just like in the movie and in the X-Men television show, he's attempting to prevent a tragedy in the future from taking place by killing somebody in the
Right.
current timeline of the X-Men who currently
Right.
does not present as a threat to anyone.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Sean, he's mostly like New Mutants villain, right?
He's not mostly a villain at all, right? Like
but like
his first appearance is
Antagonist and
there, yeah, and he's kind of like an antagonist, but that doesn't last. He's more of he becomes an ally and is more of a help to them when they're dealing with like Apocalypse and stuff like that.
okay, but it's largely because I don't remember him as much in like the X-Men stuff, so I'm assuming like he's more tangentially. I know he appears in the New Mutants specifically, so I think that's where he like mostly lives as a character.
Well, in the 90s, yeah, like in those early days, but it expanded well beyond that after those initial appearances.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Cale, I'm with you. I was surprised. I was surprised that's how they went with it, I guess.
I expected it to be a buddy movie more than a team film.
Yep.
But I was interested to see how the X-Force was going to play, because the rumor was going to be that, they were going to build the X-Force, and obviously that ended up being the case. But to go against Cable, like, makes sense. It never occurred to me.
Likewise.
Yeah, and just to add to that context of your question, Marco, Cable and Deadpool ran for 50 issues for 4 years, so
Oh wow,
that's probably where he's appeared more than any other book.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Interesting.
And Cable and Deadpool, I'm pretty sure there have been, volumes of them, over the years and different things. They're always kind of connected to each other in some form or fashion. So regarding the trailer, I think it looks fantastic. There's been a lot of talk about the movie testing poorly with audiences that they screen tested it in front of.
Yeah, really surprised to hear that.
Really?
Yeah.
I read a report where it was like they tested very positively.
Right. So I'll add the context to what I'm saying. So
yeah,
before this second trailer dropped, in like the week or two prior, there was a lot of talk about how the first batch of screenings went really badly, and how it tested worse than the original Deadpool, how it was one of the worst testing films that they had done. And what's come out since then is that they sort of tweaked it a little bit, and they tested it in front of different audiences, and they did some reshoots, which we know about, and that it's testing way better, high 90s, like 98, better than the original Deadpool. So they worked it a little bit. They did the reshoots, which are planned, by the way. There's always going to be reshoots. And now it's a better movie.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear it, because that was definitely concerning.
Yeah. So, in fact, Brianna Hildebrand, who plays Negasonic Teenage Warhead, spoke about this issue. And she had the following to say. No, it was nothing that had gone wrong. I think it's a common misconception, too, that people think that reshoots are to fix things that people didn't like. A lot of the time, reshoots are to add more of the things that people loved. Filmmakers watch their films again and are like, better fix that. I don't know how much I can say about that. Usually films hate it when you talk about their reshoots, solely because people think that it's because the film was bad for the test audience. But it was all good. So, there you go.
Yeah. And to answer your initial question, I think this is a pretty solid trailer. It's not. I prefer the other ones that they've done. I like the more non-trailery trailers that are just a little bit more silly. But because of that, this trailer was far more interesting. Because we hadn't seen all this stuff a million times over already, and I don't feel like this really gave too much away. Like, we have a better idea of what the plot is, but I don't feel like they really laid everything out in front of us necessarily. But yeah, I think for me, the highlights were definitely getting to see him in the X-Force costume for that brief shot. Yeah. That was really cool. The all gray uniform. I didn't know Terry Crews was in the movie. I don't know if that was something we knew and they just hadn't shown him off yet, but the fact that he's a part of the main squad is I'm definitely more interested now because I love Terry Crews.
He was actually in the other trailer.
Was he?
Yeah, so there's a shot of them on like an airship ready to jump out, and it's open.
Okay,
he's there. It's just not. It's not made a thing that he's there. You know,
okay,
that's the only shot you get. But
yeah, maybe I just forgot because like for whatever this time around, I was like, oh shit, like
yeah, I didn't know either.
Yeah, so that got a pop out of me. And then I did think the one like visual joke that they included that really got a kick out of me was when they were like, from the studio that brought you 27 dresses and fucking the Devil Wears Prada or whatever. It's like, that's fucking hilarious.
I bought that for a sec. I was like, huh?
I'm with Marco.
I mean, it is true. It's from the studio that made those movies. Like,
yeah.
I was just like, wait, what? Why?
Yeah. I was like, why would you? Yeah.
Because it was fun. Like, it was just funny. Like, it is very much like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, I think I feel very similar about this trailer that I feel like Cale did with the Avengers one last week, where it's like, it was fine. It's like, I didn't really need this. Like, I'm already, unless the test stuff was true and it came out, everyone was like, it's a pile of crap, and we all decided we weren't going to see it. I'm seeing this movie either way. So
yeah, as this trailer came out, like, this is the point where I would stop watching trailers. Like, I didn't want, like, they gave a lot more information than I wanted to know.
So let me ask you guys this question before we transition. Is this movie on your radar? Because obviously Black Panther happened, and there's still like a little bit of buzz about that. Avengers Infinity War is dominating a lot of the, the mind space these days. Is Deadpool really something that you're thinking about, something that you're excited about right now?
I can definitively say it's on my radar for sure. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to say excited about, but it's certainly on my radar because it's something different in the same way that Black Panther and Wonder Woman were. It's doing something different. It's the humor and the granted it's that Family Guy toilet humor, but like it's funny, and it's funny to see it in a superhero movie, and a superhero movie that works. So like for me, like I have very little exposure to Deadpool in general, so this works for me.
Cool.
Yeah, it's definitely on my radar, and I'm excited for it. I know me and my brother have a fondness for the character, so yeah, I'm definitely excited for it, and yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
On my radar, yes. I wouldn't say I'm excited for it, just because I think I've kind of hit a point with like superhero media in general where I don't necessarily get excited about everything. Like I want to go see Deadpool when it's out, when it's more imminent. I'll be excited for it when it's like, oh, we're going this week. Fuck yeah, cool. But like right now, it's like I'm not, it's so far away, and like Avengers is between it. There's like 3 other big blockbusters I'm probably going to see before Deadpool even comes out. There's about there's just so much that comes out lately that I don't get like really hype for stuff that's not imminent unless I'm really excited for it. And like I like Deadpool, and like I've always liked Deadpool. I've never been a Deadpool mega fan, and like he's super oversaturated, but I also don't hate him as much as his haters do, So it's like, am I excited for more Deadpool? Yes. Is it something that like I'm foaming at the mouth for? Not really. Like when it comes around, I'll be ready to go see it.
So I am not a fan of Deadpool. I don't really care for the character. I've only liked him one time in the comics during Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force run, and I respected the movie more than I really enjoyed it. I respected the fact that it stayed true to the character, and that it got the adaptation so right, which you don't really, especially with Fox movies, you don't really see them get it as right as they did with Deadpool, and that they were true to the tone that is right for that character. Just overall, as a film, what it did for that character, I thought was on point. But like I wasn't like overjoyed with it or anything. So I really was excited to see Cable involved. I really like him. But now that I know that he's the antagonist and that he's going up against X-Force, that actually kind of sours me a little bit. So, we'll see. Avengers is really, the imminent thing. But I will say, if I didn't do this, right? Like, if I didn't do this show, if I wasn't involved as I am, I wouldn't be thinking about Deadpool.
Interesting.
I get that. Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of the point I'm making about like saturation of superhero products. It's like, not that I'm sick of them, but they're not special anymore. Like I wanted to watch, Runaways on Hulu, but like I haven't because I just don't have time for it. Or it's like Cloak and Dagger, right? It was something that like, oh yeah, I'd like to check that out, but it's like I probably won't. Or if I do, it'll be like years later, The fact that there are so many superhero shows and movies that like there's never a break from new content, I think has overall kind of like numbed me to it a little bit. And not that I enjoy them less, but they're not exciting anymore because I expect them. They happen all the time, And I can definitely see like skipping out on a handful of them a year, if you're not dialed in like we are,
That's what Sabella said last week too. Like it's very much just, it's not special anymore. And I mean, yeah, he's starting to feel that burnout. Maybe I am a little bit too, but like Pete, you just emphasized my feelings about superhero comics.
No. Okay, that's not even.
You're a trash panda.
So moving right along, the writer of Avengers Infinity War, Stephen McFeely, says that we have no idea what Avengers 4 is. In a very
we or he?
He better know. He has to know. We don't know.
Then again, I don't know.
I don't know. He said I don't know, so I guess I don't know. So originally, and actually, I should say that Pete reported on this for CBR, which you can help him pay the bills by going and reading his article.
He put that in quotes because I say that, not because it won't actually help me pay the bills. Please go click on the article.
That was a weird place to put those quotes. That does help, right? Like,
no, it was as Pete said. It was just because that's his tag.
I say that. Yeah.
So this is the quote from McFeely. We know pretty much what's going on in Avengers 3, and just to clarify, when he says we, he means us, right? And then he follows up. You've been told who's the bad guy and what he wants for several movies, and it's not going to change. That's what's going to happen. You run it in the best possible way with twists along the way, but you have no idea what Avengers 4 is. Nobody knows, and that's what makes me particularly excited. I look all the time on the internet. People have no idea. Avengers 4 resolves the intrigue of Infinity War. The movies are clearly linked, but they almost seem to belong to two different genres. We did not want to cut a film in half and say, pay now and come back in a year for the rest. These are two very different stories on a tonal and structural level. That's really interesting. Yeah. I gotta say.
Yeah, man. And then based on the article that I wrote where they had the quotes from one of the Russos who was saying like it's not a true two-parter, I'm very much getting the impression that like they're not as connected as we think. And I kind of feel like they've been telling us that for a while. Like when they first announced Phase 2, like it was Avengers 3 and 4 or part 3, Part 1 and Part 2 or whatever. And since they've made that division, I don't feel like they've really driven the point home a lot. But I think like we've been getting clues time and time again that maybe these two films aren't as connected as we think.
Well, they literally stopped calling it Part 2. They started calling it...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Avengers 4, Untitled Avengers, whatever. There's clearly connection. It's very obvious, and he even says these movies are connected. But I think the important piece of what he's saying is that they feel like different movies. Avengers 3 has been described as like a heist movie. It's very focused and centralized on Thanos, on his quest, his journey. In my mind, if I'm theorizing, right, Avengers 4 is likely to be about what happens after that journey is complete. So he gets them. He has the gems, right? He has the gauntlet. Now, does Avengers 3 end with him ending the world? And then start Avengers 4 with, like, because not ending the world, but, like, killing half of the population. That's his goal.
That'd be crazy.
Right. I feel like if you're going to use Thanos, you have to do that. He has to win and then lose later, because that's what happens.
Well, and they tease it. They tease it in the trailer too. That like the whole wiping out half the life in the universe things. Like I feel like that's gonna happen. Like I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. So if that's correct, then they're gonna feel like very different movies. Absolutely.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I know. One of the things that the Russo said was that the connection between them is more akin to something like Age of Ultron and Civil War, in the way that like they're connected, but it's not like one picks up directly after the other. You know,
I feel like he said Civil War, Winter Soldier, and Civil War.
Okay, yeah. You're right. So I think that's probably a good indicator of what we're gonna see.
I wonder if Avengers 4, like, or at least the majority of it, will be the more cosmic event, you know, of the Avengers going into space or whatever to actually take on Thanos, whereas 3 will be more about the initial invasion. You know, so 3 will be more like an Independence Day kind of a thing, and then 4 will be more of a, I don't know, Star Wars cosmic, you know, sci-fi thing.
I think based on what we've heard about Phase 3, that probably makes sense, right? Like that we are going to be shifting things to a more cosmic focus. Like I could see that. That doesn't, you know, this is still technically a part of Phase 2, so I don't know if that is necessarily going to happen, but I feel like that's a pretty solid guess.
We're in Phase 3.
Oh.
Phase 4.
This will be Phase 4.
Sorry. Phase 4 is the next set. Yeah, so what I meant to say was that Avengers 4 is in Phase 3.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I mean, yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good guess.
Yeah. So the Avengers will carry on after Avengers 4 in some capacity, right? They're not giving up that.
The Avengers will return.
But who won't return is Chris Evans. According to the man himself, Captain America.
Not the Human Torch, no!
You know what? If he came back as a Human Torch, I would fuck with that.
What if at the end of Avengers 4, Captain America dies, but the Human Torch is brought into the world by the Cosmic Cube, the Fantastic Four, and it's Chris Evans.
He comes back and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late, guys."
I'd be so upset by that.
Yeah, ditto. So in a profile by the New York Times, a very long one that does not have a lot to do with all of this stuff, Chris Evans does kind of say that he's ready to be done. He says, literally, you want to get off the train before they push you off. So there's that. So after the reshoots, he'll probably be done. But I think, at least in my mind, they'll likely leave the door open for the Captain America character to return in some capacity if Chris Evans ever decided to come back. A lot of people have been saying that he's just going to die in the movie, that his death is confirmed. I totally disagree with that. I don't think that he has to die. I think there are a lot of other options. I saw somebody say that he could be sent back in time so that he could actually live out his life as a regular man. Maybe die with Peggy.
That'd be cool.
So I just think there are a lot of more creative ways to handle that necessarily than with his death. But who knows? I'm
inclined to think there might be something to that, just because I think it's a pretty foregone conclusion that Tony's going to die. That's at least my reading on it. And, you know, this stuff we've seen in the trailers could all be a MacGuffin, but I definitely feel like some of these main characters are going to die, and they're going to stay dead, you know, because somebody said that. I don't remember if it was a Russo or if it was Feige, but they were like, any characters who die in Infinity War aren't going to, like, come back. And it's like, okay, then someone's going to die. And I imagine it's going to be one of these main characters that we've been with for a long time that immediately elevates the, you know, investment that we have in Thanos as a villain if he kills a character that we're really attached to, that we have history with. So I feel like that's going to happen. I don't think that they're going to kill both of them off in the same movie. That seems really unlikely.
I fall into the camp where I also don't think Tony will die. I think trailers, you know, they like to throw like red herrings in there. I
Sure.
don't really buy that. I
You
also
don't think anyone's going to die, though?
No, I definitely think people are going to die. I think Vision's on the chopping block.
Sure.
And I think as we get closer to the movie and stuff, we'll have more conversations like this. So I don't want to like dive too deep. But just because Robert Downey Jr. seems to really love the Tony Stark character, I see him wanting to be open to cameos in the future. I don't see him closing the door completely. But
yeah, can I tell you
they
my
don't
theory
kill
about
Tony,
that?
then. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think Tony might die, but I think there has been a theory thrown around that Shuri will become like the Riri Williams analog, I guess. So like Tony could be her sort of Jarvis.
So in the comics, when Riri Williams jumps onto the scene, at first she has a direct relationship with Tony, but he ends up being put in a coma or whatever by Captain Marvel, and so his like consciousness is being stored on, you know, in the cloud or whatever, and that is what she connects with. So her Jarvis. Like in the movie, Iron Man has Jarvis that he talks to. In the comics, her Jarvis is actually Tony Stark. And it eventually becomes a hologram that she interacts with and such. So, yeah.
That'd be like that. That'd be a decent way to do it.
Yeah.
Sure. I had never thought of that. I like that.
One thing that's interesting about this is that it's been reported that Chris Hemsworth is going to stay on after Avengers 4, which he wasn't.
Surprising.
It sounded like he wasn't gonna originally.
He was reinvigorated by Thor 3.
By Taika's take. So I am kind of excited about that. I'd like to see more good Thor.
Yeah, and I think it would be really, really like optically lame if all of the Avengers are just gone after this, like, you know, like if they all like retire at the same time, that's like pretty convenient, you know what I mean? So like the idea that like some of these characters are going to be moonlighted, right? Like I'm pretty sure we're going to see the retirement of Hawkeye, you know, like he's already in retirement in this movie apparently, and he comes out of retirement. Like I feel like some of these characters are going to go away, whether they die or whatever. Like this is the last ride for a lot of these characters, and that makes sense. But it doesn't really make sense for, like, Thor. You know, like, he's still Thor. He's still a god. We just set up this new direction for him in Asgard, and, like, there's more to do with him, and it doesn't feel appropriate to end his story now. So I'm glad, like, as much as I'm also excited for just new Thor stuff, I think, like, that's going to make the storytelling in these connected movies work better when it's not the OG cast is all just graduating at the same time. Here's the new people. You know, it's like, that seems like a little bit convenient, a little hammy. So that's cool.
Yeah, and we'll obviously be talking a lot more about Avengers Infinity War as the movie approaches. So if you hate talking about Avengers and you hate, you know, Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, Marco.
Phil.
So, Avengers Infinity War is a massive event on screen. In the comics, though, the event that a lot of people are talking about, especially this week, is Power Rangers Shattered Grid. So we have talked about this incoming event before, but a trailer was released for the comic book event that features Jason David Frank himself reprising his role as the Green Lantern. And
the Green Lantern.
I'm sorry. Wow, the Green Ranger. Oh man, the Green Ranger. And because I can't speak, apparently, I'm going to turn it over to somebody who speaks a little better. Cale, why don't you talk to us about this trailer?
I really thought that was going to me.
No, Marco.
So we've already seen like a book trailer, right? Like we saw Jason David Frank like narrate sort of comic panels and give like a the cool pitch for the book, but this trailer specifically was a live action, as though it's a new set of like TV Power Rangers event.
Yeah.
And that was, man, it's dope as fuck. He's as Tommy is Lord Draken, and he's sitting on his throne, and like the cool beefy Yellow Ranger comes up to him as he's like reminiscing and kind of looking out over all of the history of the Power Rangers as we knew it, and you kind of see all the clips of like the important Rangers. And I think the big one you see is the Time Force Rangers and the young Tommy himself, and the big line is it's time. Oh no, I'm gonna mess up the big line. They should have known they could have become gods. No, that's bad.
Yeah, you fucked it up.
In the
it's
end,
something to the effect
out
of
it,
they
man.
could have become gods.
in the end, they'll know they could have been gods. Yep.
I wasn't that far off.
No.
Rewrite it a couple times, send it back to the writing room for sure, but I wasn't that far off.
The Yellow Ranger does with Lord Draken, the voice, wasn't that Brienne of Tarth or Phasma? Is that the same actress?
No.
Voice actress?
No.
Okay.
That is the same actress, but that was not her.
Okay, it sounded like it for me.
Marco, but what was your take on this, though? I know you're into this, right?
Yeah, it was sick, dude. I've been excited for this ever since I bought all 3 of the trades back at New York Comic Con, and like I breezed through them because it was just like, it's such a good story. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to this. And then I actually, for a second, I sort of thought this was a trailer for a Shattered Grid like show, event, or movie or something, because that would have been insane. I was all about that. I mean, the story's there, honestly, and if they could do that as a show, that'd be awesome. But like, as a trailer for the book, this was awesome. I mean, this is great. This was a great PR move too, to really hype up the book and to just bring about like this just feeling of resurgence of like Power Rangers. Because again, like we've talked in the past, it seems to be like a nostalgia for the 90s and stuff, and this was big during the 90s. And so I don't know, overall this is just a good move, and it's a good way to engage with audiences. I mean, and like all the 4 of us here, like all excited about it, even if we Pete, I don't think you've actually read the books, but like still, this is something that you're just like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah, it's like this isn't for me. Like, I don't really have any relationship to the Power Rangers. When I was like a little kid, I wasn't allowed to watch the show, so like I never really developed an affinity for the series. But like, I definitely echo your sentiments about this as like a marketing tool. It's just super smart. Like, this went viral.
Yeah, definitely.
And like a press release sent to CBR's inbox that gets written up or whatever is going to get a quarter, a fucking 1% of the amount of views that something like this could get if it's done well. And this was done really well.
Yep.
You know, like I don't know anything about the Power Rangers, but like watching that scene where he's watching a clip from the show and like, you know, ruminating on his past and the connection he used to have with the Rangers, it was just like, whoa, yeah, like this is some real human drama here. And like, I can understand why, if you're a classic Power Rangers fan who grew up watching it, like that's such a hype moment, you know? So yeah, this is just like, the whole way they've handled the rollout of this event has been really, really cool and super smart in my mind.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I'm hearing about it, you know? Like I had friends who are comics people that were like, yo, like I saw that trailer. Are those books any good? Like, should I be reading them? You know? And so it's obviously it's doing its fucking job.
Yep.
So there's also a tie-in with the there's a tabletop game called Power Rangers Hyperforce. It's like the Hyperforce RPG, and the Power Rangers team does a live stream on it on Twitch, and the guy who played Bulk is, you know, it takes place in the future, kind of after the Power Rangers Time Force series, and the guy who plays Bulk is like the Yellow Ranger, and he's like this bulky, you know, sort of security guard, but the hook of this RPG is that they've had a bunch of older Rangers come on the show. So like the Pink Time Force Ranger was like a professor at this academy, and they've had like Aisha, and so to tie into all of this, the Power Rangers Hyperforce Rangers are part of the Shattered Grid event, and Jason David Frank has been on the show twice as
cool.
Lord Draken.
Oh wow!
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I appreciate your enthusiasm as I added the hook. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, that's cool. He was on the show, but it's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right. That's
awesome.
neat. And it's just smart. It's good synergy.
Yeah.
You know, like, man, it's like,
man.
it's really unfortunate they botched that movie. You know, like if that movie had hit, we'd be in like a full-fledged Power Rangers renaissance right now.
Yeah. And I don't even know that I would go as far as to say it was botched. Like, the movie itself was good. It was fun. But it was a Power Rangers series. Say what you will about the Power Rangers. Like, it's not great.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
In general, you know. But, like, it wasn't super well received. You know?
Yeah.
So, because, I was kind of thinking about how they could pull this together and sort of tie that into the universe too, and man, that would be sick.
Well, maybe if this does what they're hoping it does, and the Power Rangers Renaissance continues, there will be hope for a future film that maybe pulls something from this and learns something from this. I think that would be cool, because a lot of people have said that this trailer looked better than the whole movie. So there you go.
I'd agree.
The comic book will be available March 28th, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited for this, and I would love to talk about it, so maybe we'll do that. We'll see. In other news, I told you we'd talk about Vin Diesel, and we're about to. Vin Diesel
is playing the new Green Ranger. Whoa!
What?
Guys, shit!
That's horrible. In fact, Vin Diesel is playing Bloodshot. So Bloodshot is a character from the Valiant universe, and he's the first one who's going to be up on the big screen. Cale, what's up?
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I know you're in the middle of something important. Isn't Jason David Frank playing Bloodshot?
In the Ninjak versus the Valiant universe web series.
So Vin Diesel is the Green Ranger.
What?
Oh, I see where you're going.
So hang on.
Yes.
So Vin Diesel is playing Bloodshot, who's also being played by Jason David Frank. So thereby, Jason David Frank and Vin Diesel are the same person.
Right, transitive property, of course.
Yeah. Meaning, Vin Diesel is the Green Ranger.
Whoa.
So you ever see that meme where like it's like you say one thing and it's like and then you say another thing and it's
brains.
like yeah, that's what just happened. That's what that was.
Cale, you should make that a meme and like we'll share it.
Nah, that's all right.
All right.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Wasn't that funny?
So instead of that, let's talk about this huge news. So the film is said to be in the vein of movies like RoboCop and Terminator, and is looking to be R-rated, which is probably a good thing. What I'm most excited about is the fact that the script is going to be written by the writer of the recent movie Arrival. So Eric Hesserer is the writer there, and David Wilson, who is a partner of Tim Miller's, who directed the original Deadpool. They work at the same film studio, Blur Studios. So he's going to direct the film. So really solid pedigree there, and I think this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Vin Diesel play the Green Ranger.
Stop!
Oh, whoops. No, but I have no context. I have no idea who Bloodshot is or his character. Like I know of him, and I only know of him because I know the Long Box Boys sometimes review some of the books and some of the Valiant stuff. But I mean, other than that, I have no idea. But I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of interested, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of familiarity with Bloodshot. The only thing I really know is that he's got some memory problem that goes on.
What? A superhero? No memory? Weird.
Doesn't he? He's like kind of like Valiant's
main
like
character.
mascot, right? Yeah, right. Like I feel like I've never read one of his books, but I feel like I see him at Comic-Con every year, like in a big way. You know, like he's always plastered on their, you know, around their booth and everything. They had like a dude cosplaying as him last year when I was like at their booth as well.
Bloodshot is Valiant's booth, babe.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know if Bloodshot is the their main character. I think it might be Exo Manowar, but I'm not.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, that book is big.
Yeah, I really.
Either way,
I think it, and this is what little I know of Valiant, but I think it all kind of started. At least the renaissance of Valiant kind of started with Bloodshot, didn't it?
Okay, I have no.
I thought it was with Faith.
No,
Faith was like she came after that.
Oh, did she? Okay.
She was kind of a newer character that really helped blow them up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff before her was from what I understand was really good, but Faith really blew it up to a whole new audience.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I will say that the casting of Vin Diesel doesn't do anything at all for me, but I think it adds legitimacy to this project because Vin Diesel still is a bankable star. I believe that I saw that he was the highest paid actor last year or something like that. Fast
I don't
and
think
Furious.
so. He might be in that conversation, but I know The Rock and Kevin Hart are both like real up there.
Yeah, so he's still, but the point that I was trying to make was that he still is a bankable actor.
Yeah, he's a big get.
Yeah, so this makes this something that could theoretically be a blockbuster hit.
Yeah, like this movie definitely has steam behind it. Yeah, like when you have this level of talent, across the board too. Like there are some, those are some decently up and coming names behind the scenes as well. So yeah, I mean, we'll see on this one. Yeah, like I don't really have much of a connection to this publisher of these books, but this is the best way to make your small publisher break out. Like if this movie comes out and is like even like a cult hit, like that's going to mean more sales for Valiant and more like name recognition for Bloodshot and for like a new generation of superheroes, which is important.
So for me, I think this is cool. I want to see more diverse, like a more diverse offering of superheroes in the sense that, you know, I'm down for something not Marvel or DC. I did want to add Vin Diesel, highest paid actor of 2017.
Really?
Yep.
That's so crazy.
Top grossing actor of 2017. The Rock was number 2.
Huh.
Wow.
Yep.
What else was he even in? How did he make more money than The Rock? He was in like 10 movies. What? All right, whatever. Yeah, I mean, so obviously that's a big deal.
Vin Diesel's in the good ones, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fast and the Furious, Triple X. So
I forgot they made that Triple X movie.
Yeah, so Vin Diesel doing
Did that
well
make
for
money?
himself. Apparently.
Plus the Guardians movies. So
That's yeah.
Right. I forgot Guardians 2 came out last year. Uh-huh. Okay. That makes sense. Well, you know, it's like, I don't know. I'm not like a fucking huge Vin Diesel fan or anything, but it's like when it comes to like action stars, I feel like he's pretty hard to beat, you know? Like he definitely like I don't know, like I like the Chronicles of Riddick movies. Like I think those are fucking cool. So it's like whatever, like let's do it.
Yeah, and when we do the Film Pals, we can talk more about that. But as this is the Comics Pals, I think we'll stop talking about Vin Diesel's success.
I'm just saying, I want to see him play fucking, what's his name? Man-O-War? No, that's the other
Bloodshot.
Bloodshot, yeah.
So before, you thought the movie wasn't going to speak to you, but now that you know he's the top grossing actor, now you're excited. Is that what you're saying?
No, I said, I didn't say I didn't think it was going to speak to me. I said that even if it doesn't speak to me, I hope it's successful.
Gotcha.
You know? I don't know. I don't know anything about this dude.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I like it.
yeah, I don't know. I think Valiant Man's gonna be. It might be good. You know, it could be good.
Valiant Man.
If the trailer is good, I'll be there for the movie. That's where I'm at.
Same.
With this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's cool that it's R-rated.
yes. So we talked about this a few weeks back, but nothing was official, and now DC is officially announcing that Scott Snyder is taking over the Justice League. That is not the headline necessarily. The headline is more about the fact that he will be joined by Jim Chung, who is traditionally a Marvel artist.
I see.
Yep, best known for
I gotcha.
Young Avengers and Avengers properties. Someone who'd been working with Marvel. I want to say, I mean, Young Avengers. That was so long ago, like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
something like that.
The original one.
Yeah. And so, and a phenomenal artist, one of my favorite artists in the industry. Now going to be working on Justice League alongside Jorge Jimenez, who is also jumping on board. And for a new series that's going to be debuting in June. I think this is really, really, really cool and exciting. The concept art, or not the concept art, but the promotional art that they've shared from Jim Chung, it looks fantastic. And I really like the cast that they've got. And I'll just tell you guys the cast before you give me your takes. We've got, you know, the big three: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Trinity, Aquaman, Flash, Martian Manhunter, Cyborg, Jon Stewart.
Ooh, that's a good move.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Hawkgirl. So,
Yo, that's like a fucking all-star cast.
this is a very cool cast.
It's like legit basically the cast of the Justice League cartoon, but also their friend Cyborg was there.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, yeah. Like, cool.
I think my only thing about this is sort of similar to how I felt about the announcement of Ed McGuinness on the Avengers. It feels like a hype announcement because Jim Chung doesn't typically stay on books for very long, especially these big ones.
The fact that Jorge Jimenez was announced alongside this tells me that they're going to be alternating.
Yeah.
Whether that's arc-based or how this works out, it remains to be seen. I'm not sure if this is a bi-weekly book or a monthly book or whatever. I definitely think that because there's an additional artist, we're probably going to get Jim Chung for like an arc or two, and he'll swap off,
maybe
get the arc or two, and then call it. I mean, he's got to do an arc, right? There's no way.
Yeah, he's not going to do less than 6 issues.
I don't know, man. Marvel swapped him out with a lot of people pretty quick. And I'm not saying that in terms of, you know, he's bad or he's slow. I don't know what the case is, but you know, the Marvel events typically, which he worked on a lot of, you know, specifically, he was on. I feel like he did the 0 issue of Original Sin, right?
I'm looking at his work now, and I don't see that as a part of his catalog.
I feel like he does a lot of first event issues, and then they kind of swapped him out with like Linil Yu.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add to that, but.
So he did Avengers Children's Crusade, which is what I most associate him with.
Sure, yeah, because he was attached to Young Avengers, yeah.
Right, and then everything else is kind of like scattered work. So like an issue here or there of New Avengers, which I was also a big fan of. New Avengers Illuminati. The only thing that he appears to have had like a lengthy run on is something called Maverick, which was an 11-issue run. So everything else is like an issue here or there or something like that. Sporadic is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe there is something to that then, Cale. But I probably am gonna agree with you on this one, Sean. Or I feel like we'll probably see him do at least 6 issues.
Listen. I hope that's the case. Jim Chung is incredible.
Yes.
His name is enough to get me excited for sure. But given my, you know, the past he's had at Marvel, I just kind of,
yeah,
you know, it's enough to get me to pick up the first issue. But if he's not on it, I probably won't.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to be picking this up, and I'm excited for Scott Snyder on Justice League finally. So, in other DC Comics news, they have signed a deal with Frank Miller to produce 5 projects as a part of what appears to be a bookstore initiative. So one of the projects we already heard about, which is the impending Superman Year One. The only other project that has been announced is a young adult graphic novel that's going to star Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
You know what though?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. That's the wave of emotion that just hit me.
That was my exact reaction. Oh wait.
Right, it's like that sounds awesome, but it's Frank Miller writing that now, not in like 1985.
Yeah. We're talking like 100-year-old dude that runs around grouchy in a fedora writing a teenager. Like, I don't know.
Well, it is his creation, so maybe he's still got, you know, a flair for that character. But Jim Lee and Dan Didio did have some things to say regarding this announcement. We're looking at our business strategy and how the market and our fans have changed, Dan Didio said to Publishers Weekly. We're developing a new strategy about how we deal with all of our characters, and we want to get the widest audience possible. Jim Lee then said, we're becoming a book publisher. We're bringing in new talent with their own audiences to attract readers we haven't had before. We want to branch out. We know how to service our core market, the comic shops market, but we see our numbers in the book market. We sell more graphic novels and periodicals, and we want to produce comics. We want to produce books with a long shelf life.
Huh.
I just don't know if that's the way to do it. I think it, like, within their idea, you know, they want to reach new people with, you know, long-standing characters. But, like, so you're going to have Frank Miller write a teenage graphic novel? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I definitely see your trepidation. Frank Miller is not a writer that is without controversy. And all of that is just a Google search away. So it's interesting to me that he would be the choice here. Not just because of the controversy in terms of like what he's been willing to do on the page, but just some of the things that he said and stuff like that, and like where the quality level is with his work now versus 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't care about this at all, if I'm being honest. I'm not interested in any way.
Yeah,
I would be more interested if it were someone like Rainbow Rowell or Mags Visaggio would even be good, I think.
So I'm not interested in this content. I'm interested in this initiative. Frank Miller's best work is behind him, in my opinion. And that's not to say he'll never write something good again. But to me, like hearing DC has this new initiative and they're kicking it off with 5 original graphic novels by Frank Miller is not necessarily something that to me is appealing. Like his name used to mean something for quality. I don't think it does anymore. That being said, the quote that you had from who was it from? Because you said it was from...
It was Dan and Jim both speaking, so it depends on which quote you're referring to.
Okay, so I don't know which one of them it was, but the thing they were saying about how we're looking at the market and how our readers have evolved and changed, and we sell more graphic novels and periodicals, right? Yeah. That's something we've talked about a lot on the show. And I think to see them making moves that are proactive towards that future, that's good in my mind. And I don't want single issues to go away. I don't want periodicals to go away. I don't want comic book stores to go away. But like we've talked ad nauseum on this show about how times are changing, models are changing, the way people consume content is changing. And like, frankly, like the big two is dumb to not be thinking about stuff like this. To not be thinking about the bookstore or the Amazon or the Kindle market or whatever, and thinking about how they can deliver content that's better suited to that space because the numbers don't lie, and like they're saying, they sell more graphic novels. It's not even just like we want to appeal to casuals. It's like, well, you need to go where your market is. And if people want to buy comics in a collected format rather than in single issues at a comic book store, okay, fine. Make content that speaks to that market, make content that's suited to that. And find a way to optimize the periodicals that you do have that are successful to continue succeeding in that marketplace as well. And I think that's what DC's been doing. Is like they've been diversifying their offerings in a major way. And not just the kinds of stories they're telling, but who's telling them and how they're being distributed. And that is super smart. So whether or not this deal with Frank Miller is a right first step, I think the fact that they're even having this conversation and thinking about this, that's good.
It's like they listen to the Comics Pals or something.
We got somebody at DC over there.
Somebody's listening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is definitely in line with the Black Label stuff that we've heard about, and
hell yeah,
the book initiative that we heard about, the actual the young adult novelists that they brought on to do those graphic novels that we talked about a few weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely what they should be doing. I am always reserving judgment until we actually see product.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Superman Year One could be really good, but it could also not be. And if it's not, then what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well,
that's.
Yeah, I think oh no, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say I think it will be kind of good, like Superman Year One, just because based off of the Master Race. I don't know if anyone else read it, but like he handled Superman he handled him pretty well, and it was one of those moments where I remember, like, after I had finished it, I was like, hey, to Phil, I was like, hey, like he did Superman pretty well, and like to the point where it got me interested in it, and I think that's when I had picked up like also Superman right after that. So I mean, I think that'll be good to as to whether or not the young adult graphic novel will be with Carey. I don't know. That one's like depending on if he has any stories there. But I don't know. I mean, the Superman might be good. Could be good.
So
I just feel like they're putting out so many books here. Like if one or two of them is bad, it doesn't even matter. Like if year one isn't great, but like the other several Black Label books that they announced are, it's like, okay, well, Black Label is a success.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first one, and it's going to set the tone. And Frank Miller he had a co-writer on The Master Race. Brian Azzarello is
fair, yeah,
very talented. So we have no idea the level of help or who did what who did the heavy lifting, how they shared the work. I remember back when that book was being published, that was something that I was intrigued by, and I recall Brian Azzarello and Andy Kubert really talking about how like they had the vision and they had the like idea of the story and stuff, and they needed Frank Miller's blessing, and he came on board. But we don't know, like I don't know how much he really contributed. So I don't want to take anything away from him, but I also don't want to give him something he doesn't deserve, pretty much.
Sure. Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me to find out that he did the Superman parts. Like, you know, maybe after all this time he's finally got something decent to say about Superman, and that's where this is coming from.
Maybe.
We shall see.
Yeah, exactly. It remains to be seen.
Yeah, I do have to say, though, I think you're right that, like, this is going to set the tone of the conversation originally. But I think even if this book is weak, I think that'll be looked at more of a failing of Frank Miller and not, like, Black Label. Especially when there are, I don't know, there's so many books that are already going to come out. Even if that one tanks, the next 4 books that are confirmed are happening, right? And I think some of those, I'm very confident will be good. And I hope that, you know, I hope that they're a success. I hope they're a financial success and that we see more stuff like this.
So, we just talked about how comics can grow and what DC is doing to bolster the industry. But now we're going to talk about something that I think has the potential to actually destroy the comic book industry. And that is the huge discussion about Comicsgate and about the recent article that came out from BuzzFeed that details what's going on with Comicsgate. And so what I'm wondering, and what we're going to be talking about in our main topic, is does the anti-diversity movement in comics threaten to destroy the industry?
Wait, anti-diversity or diversity?
Anti-diversity.
You sure about that?
I'm sure. Now, this BuzzFeed article that I am referring to is very comprehensive. The person, the writer, Rachel Krishna, she did a fantastic job. It's an exhaustive work, basically compiling the history of the anti-diversity movement in comics through, you know, diversity in comics, that you know, the well-known Twitter page and YouTube page that, you know, really is at the center of a lot of this stuff. She talks about some of the key players like Chelsea Kane who have been attacked and where it all started, and the role that Ethan Van Sciver plays in all of this as well. So I'm not going to go through the whole article. It's just too much. If you want to see it, we'll have a link to it in the description. But it does set the table for the conversation that I do want to have. So we know that the comic book industry is not a big one. And we talked about Meltdown Comics, an institution in the industry closing down after 25 years. And we understand that probably has something to do with the location and, you know, like a bunch of other factors that don't necessarily have to do with the fact that they sell comics. But we would be crazy to not acknowledge that that's a part of it, right? It's
tough business.
Yeah, it's not easy to succeed in this business. And comic book stores aren't popping up every day. They're shutting down every day, right? Like it's, you know, it's a problem. And alongside that, you have a group of people who rightfully want comics to flourish by increasing the diversity in the books. And not just in the books, but behind the books as well, right? Like new creators who have different ideas, who aren't just, you know, white guys. and that's led to some of the better comics that we've had in the past decade. Absolutely. And I think anybody who's looking at the books objectively would agree to that. However, there is a subset of comic book fans who don't want that, don't agree with the statement I just made, and would prefer if comic books only featured, a certain kind of character, and more to the point, white male characters and female
Cisgender.
characters. Sure. And female characters who are not in great positions of power. Like there's been a big problem with Captain Marvel and where, what her role has been in the books. And who would prefer that the people in charge of putting these books out, the people who are in charge of creating these books, weren't just men. White men, to be exact. And those people, unfortunately, have a big voice, and they have been very active on social media decrying what they view as a social justice warrior. I hate that term, but that's the term that's used. Diversity push that is killing comics. Now, before I stop talking, I just want to add, the reason why I frame this conversation as, does this have the potential to destroy the industry, is because the reality that we have to face is that these people are avid comic book readers. They have a vested interest in what is happening in the industry, or they wouldn't talk about it. And these people don't buy and don't promote books that aren't written, drawn, and featuring people who they want to support. And they actively push books that do feature what it is that they're looking for. And those are the books that they're trying to get people to look for. Diversity in Comics has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of followers on Twitter and an active and successful YouTube page. Ethan Van Sciver has not been touched or affected by the drama that he's been involved in. And so the point that I'm getting at is, if these people decide, okay, comic books aren't for us anymore, we're pushed out, how does that affect an industry where literally every sale matters?
It's honestly, I think when you frame it that way, which I don't think is a disingenuous or misleading way to frame it, the future looks pretty fucking grim, man. And I think about that all the time. I don't think that that comics are ever going to go anywhere. I think people will always make comics at some capacity. But I do think that if the industry doesn't make a sincere attempt to evolve and change over the next 10, 20 years, that there might not be a comic book industry anymore in the way that there has been. Because you're right, every sale does count. And what happens if the superhero bubble bursts and there isn't a cultural interest in superheroes anymore? It's do they have the ability to keep, putting out the new number one that gets in, the casual reader that does give you that dead cat bounce in your finances? Is there a moment where it's too late to save the industry, right? And I don't think we're there, but I feel like the part of that need to evolve and change is to find new readership. And if you can find people of color or, people from the LGBT community or wherever that aren't reading comic books and activate them, that's good. That leads to a future where there are more people reading comics. And that, if you really care about comics, that should be the end goal, right? And to me, if you're somebody who wants to gatekeep certain kinds of people away from the hobby that you enjoy, that speaks volumes about you as a person and where you're at, right? You want comics to be your club of like-minded people where you can just fucking have your echo chamber. And I think that's a really, really, really dangerous mentality when you're talking about an industry that is so small.
I mean, I definitely. I definitely see where you're coming from, Pete, and I don't know. I guess I maybe see it differently. I think that those people are slowly starting to get phased out, and that we are getting introduced to more diversity, but within a different, not within like the big two necessarily. If we use that as just a frame of reference, but like anywhere else, I mean, 2016 we got La Borinqueña, the first Puerto Rican superhero. Like that to me is huge, and I mean the sales were pretty good for it. The second issue's coming out, you know, the writer toured all over the country for that, and I mean, to me, like something like that, or with a comic like Black, or a comic like Kim and Kim, or even like Pride for that matter. Those are books that have a large following, that are sort of blowing up in the industry, and to an extent, and like because they are coming from smaller publishers, but those are I feel the direction that comics is sort of shifting towards, because they are becoming more prominent, and that there is a low bar for entry into comics, but in order for it to be successful, like obviously that's a different measure, but because there is such a low bar to come in, you get that influx of just constant diversity. You get new ideas, you get all that stuff, and things, and publishers are realizing that. You know, we have like something like Burger Books, which is trying to also push that idea of like diversity in different projects. All of what DC's doing, I mean, with all their varying imprints, is to an extent trying to push those voices up, versus suppress them or try to they're trying to follow the market. And I think the market is shifting into that sort of diverse and more open-minded place.
That said, though, the big two are like the anchors of the comic book industry, whether you like it or not. You
right.
know, their quality and their, you know, your mileage may vary on all that. The fact of the matter is, like, without the big two right now, there would not be a comic industry. The thing about this controversy is that the people of color, the LGBT writers and the women are trying to get into the big two where those sales are. And if all of these, you know, shitty people are what's keeping the big two afloat, you know, other than their parent companies, then we could very well see a comic crash. And while Image is big, and it is big enough that I think it would survive, it does make me question what would happen after, you know, in the comics apocalypse, who comes out?
Well, and everything would change, because like in that
it would have
fictional
to.
Doomsday, yeah, right. Like in that fictional Doomsday scenario, like comic book stores probably go under.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and we would have to change distribution and everything. Like, so that's the thing of like this is a significant number of the people who read comics. And I think it's interesting, and Sean, I'd like to turn it back over to you after I make this point. We've talked about this on the Video Game Pals a certain amount, right? Of like the issue of toxicity in gaming. And, you know, we've talked about like, at least I am of the belief that it's a vocal minority there, because there are millions of people that play games. There's a way smaller percentage of them that care enough to go talk about it on the internet. Whereas
I agree.
There isn't that same ratio for comics, because simply less people read comics. So considering like how many people there are on the internet talking about comics, that's actually pretty representative of the number of people that there are, because it's a smaller sampling size. And again, this is bullshit napkin math, but it is a thing of like, if you took out every bigot who reads comics, it's like, well, how many people are left? And that's concerning.
Right. So to me, I'm not really down to say that we're talking about a majority. I'm not even down to say we're talking about like half or whatever of the of the people who read books. What I am saying is that in video games, toxic people who talk about, who are toxic online and whatever, like you said, they don't represent the entirety of gaming, because gaming is like so many different things, right? Like gaming is people who play mobile games, but it's also people who go hard in League of Legends. So it's just so vast. In comics, even if it's like the top, like let's say for example, a book that sells 10,000 copies, right? If half of those people are just done with the fact that the main character is Captain Marvel and they're not about to read it anymore, and you cut that number in half and it's 5,000, that's a book that's getting canceled, right?
Yep.
I mean, even at the big two, like a book that sells 10,000 is like that's a failing book.
Yeah, that was a bad.
But you are right. Yeah.
So that's a big issue, and I think that, look, realistically speaking, we're talking about businesses that need to make money. And when I read this and when I thought about this, my mind went to what are Marvel and DC supposed to do in a situation where if they alienate the portion of their fan base that are clearly in the wrong, they could lose what it is that they do. How do you react to that? We know already, it's a fact, that so many of the books that were beloved because of how much they embrace diversity are gone. They got canceled. Or they've been on the chopping block. How many times have we talked about that? So what do you do?
Yeah, you've got a Marvel distribution executive,
David Gabriel,
saying diversity is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. So how many times do you relaunch, like, I don't know, like a Captain Marvel or a Kate Bishop or a Miss Marvel? How many times do you do that before you just realize, like, okay, this isn't gonna work. We can't do this. How many times do you put Ta-Nehisi Coates on Captain America? And obviously that book's not out yet, so we don't know how it's gonna sell. But how many times do you do that? Do you take a risk like that before you say, okay, look, no, like, not enough people are into this. The people who we market to are shitty people. The people who buy our books are shit. Like, what do you do?
Well, and it's tough because, like, I think, like, with some of this, like, I think a lot of these people could probably have an easier time with, and not all of them, right? Could have an easier time with, like, a black writer writing a white character rather than they are with, like, all, like, being increased diversity on the page. I definitely feel like a lot of these people come at it from the angle of, like, I'm not racist, I just like legacy character X, right?
I just like it the way it's always been.
Right, exactly. And I do think there's something to that. But yeah, I think you're right, Sean, that, like, they're in this spot where they're kind of damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Like, making the effort to appeal to new demographics and new readers is, I think, smart, right? Like, I was praising DC for trying to do that in different ways, though not necessarily, like, in the same way. But that's a gamble, because you don't know that those readers are going to be activated readers that buy these books month to month, and these other people who are shitty but entrenched, they are, and they will.
That said, Jim Lee we just read a quote where Jim Lee and Dan Didio said that the graphic novel sales are better than the periodical sales.
Yeah, and I think this is more of a problem in the monthly space than it is in the graphic novel space, simply because graphic novels reach more people, and general audiences are more inclined to read something done than something not done. So
that's where I come at it.
You definitely make a good point, but in my mind, and I'm open to being challenged, I don't know that Marvel and DC survive without monthly books. The way their business model, the way that they operate.
Sorry, you
go ahead.
cut out a little bit for me there. I think I agree. At this point, I don't know that Marvel and DC could survive switching to a graphic novel format. I really don't. I think, a company like Image, Black Mask, the smaller ones could. And I think that would only help their sales. But, I don't think they could do that in perpetuity.
Right. And so,
yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot of their whole business model would have to change.
Yeah.
I think the way that could work would be then like to have an increase in digital sales, but that would again it would have to be like they would really have to change the way they do things to survive without like the monthly brick and mortar model that we have right now.
And I think that's what it is like it's largely the business model that is also not helping this problem. Like if they could make that switch, or like here they totally could, right? Like they totally could just revamp their business model, whether or not it'd be good or bad, like whatever, we could discuss that, right? But the business model itself is also what's kind of inadvertently driving this issue. And I mean, if they could change that, that could also just be a way to maybe not have to necessarily sacrifice the sales and not have to sacrifice the diversity within these characters, potentially.
I mean, like, I mean, we could spitball that, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, there are people who are very, very invested in these characters being written by certain kinds of people, being drawn by certain kinds of people, and that's what it is. And that doesn't even this issue is so complex, right? So, for example, you've got Ethan Van Sciver, who is a comic book artist who draws Green Lantern and is very well known. I've enjoyed a ton of stuff that he has done. But he is a pro in the industry who furthers this problem of antagonizing people on social media, in particular comic book creators who are of color or who are not straight, individuals, or who are women. That's just what it is. It's a fact. In fact, a comic book creator named Daryl Ayo, who wrote a book called Little Garden, has been constantly harassed by diversity in comics, and Ethan Van Sciver, and this is all readable stuff. Racist things being said towards him. He's a black man. Racist things being said towards him. Some things like, this is what happens when you give a homeless crack addict an iPad, right? That kind of dialogue. This is what happens when you let a monkey write comics. These are the kinds of things that are being said.
Wow.
Yeah. So the argument is and has been, oh well, we're not bigots. Ethan Van Sciver was interviewed by BuzzFeed and he said he hates bigots. Okay, so then why are you aligning yourself with diversity in comics and others, people who follow you, who engage in this kind of dialogue? And so what does Daryl Ayo do? Does he stop writing comics? Does he get chased out of the industry like Chelsea Cain? Chelsea Cain is a young adult novelist who actually has the capacity to bring readers into the industry, and she's off Twitter and doesn't want to mess with comics anymore because of this.
Yep. Because her first experience was, horrific.
Yeah. Because of the fan base. That's a horrible thing. Why do we think, right? And why does the big two think they're going to be able to pull in new readers when you look this stuff up? This is what you see. If I'm a woman right now, right, and I'm not trying to speak for women, I'm just saying how I would think. I'm afraid of this fan base if this is the kind of thing that goes on. Like, if you read about Chelsea Cain's experience, do you really want to go to a comic book store?
Well, yeah, and it's like, again, I don't want to speak for any women, but like speaking anecdotally, a really, really close friend of mine is a woman and is an avid comic book reader. Like in the shop every Wednesday kind of person. Like she has tattoos that are from comics and stuff like that, and that constantly invites harassment on her. You know, I've been at the store with her where someone's come up to her and tried to like quiz her, you know, and be like, "Oh, you have a tattoo from that? Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And like trying to like get her to slip up, you know, so they can call her out, and or just dudes being creepy and like hitting on her or whatever, which is also a fun thing when you want to just go to a place and pick up a book or whatever. So yeah, I totally think there's something to that of like. And Sean, like you've spoken about this, you know, like, or Marco, I think specifically has said this on the show where like when you were growing up, you weren't interested in like nerd stuff because it was a cultural thing of like, oh, that's white people stuff. And it's like, I feel like having other creators, like seeing creators or characters or whatever that are representative of you and your experience, like shows you that that's not the case. So like, I feel like when you have a person who is a female writer trying to come in here and do her first book in the space and she gets chased off Twitter, like, is that a signal to you as a female writer of like, I should give it a try? You know,
well, and also to kind of double down on that, not that, I mean, this does sort of equate, but even the straight white male writers get it, right? Like, you know, I watch Kurt Busiek get pummeled every day on Twitter, to the point where like I know I've spoken in our chat about just like when I get to a point where I am creating stuff that people are reading, just dropping off social media completely. Like, why would you want to engage in your audience that way? And like, I don't know or understand how people like Scott Snyder or like Greg Rucka or even Bendis stay above that.
Oh, I can answer it for you very easily, man. The fact of the matter is that these are people who are not directly confronted with this issue. And like, they're good people, I'm sure. You know, I've never had a bad run-in, never heard a bad thing about any of those guys that you mentioned, but they're also not, they're not confronted with this. Their fan base loves what they do and don't question it because they're just regular old white guys who aren't going to risk their sales to come out and say, hey, if you're a fan of mine who's like this, screw you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like Eminem, the rap artist, came out firmly and staunchly against Donald Trump and said openly, if you are a fan of mine and you like Donald Trump and you support him, I don't want you to be a fan of mine. And the album he just put out a few months ago was the worst performing album he's ever had by far. And the reason is specifically, it's specifically because of this.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. No, that's completely fair.
That's like a statement you can't make in comics, you know, like if you that could kill your career. Well,
DC specifically has a policy that they actually reiterated to BuzzFeed when BuzzFeed approached them for commentary, and their policy is pretty like blanket in the sense that they don't want anyone saying anything on social media related to politics or gender or race or anything like that. They don't want their people to be representing them in that way. In fact, I'll just read you the statement. DC expects that its employees and freelance talent community maintain a high level of professionalism as well as reasonable and respectful behavior when engaging in online activities. Comments that may be considered defamatory, libelous, discriminatory, harassing, hateful, or that incite violence are unacceptable and may result in civil or criminal action. There's more to that, but you get the gist. And so it would look bad for Scott Snyder to come out and say anything, because then it's like, well, why are you inciting this? And DC's they're gonna refer to their code of conduct. But somehow, I reiterate, Ethan Van Sciver has avoided being reprimanded in a public sense this entire time, and he's employed by them.
I mean, this coming from the company though that had a serial, sexual harasser, on the Superman editorial for how many decades?
Ed Berganza, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, it's
it's entrenched, man.
Yeah.
Like it's a part of the industry, and it's a thing that is either, God, I don't know, man. It's either going to go away, or it's like it might really, really hurt it. You know, like, and I don't know that it's going to kill it. Like, I think it's bold to make that kind of claim, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's hard and frustrating to be such a fervent fan and defender of the industry when this is the kind of thing that, you know, that's real, that really is happening. And like, you know, I don't care, I'm not worried at all, but like, even us, we even have to think about as a podcast, you know, having these discussions and having it be heard. When we talked about Aubrey Sitterson and that situation with G.I. Joe, people came into our mentions on YouTube and were very negative and critical.
Yeah, that's true.
And so
we're nobody.
Right. And we're not, you know, we're not up there. So imagine being somebody who is actually in the industry, Chelsea Kane, I refer back, just trying to put out a book, right, that appeals to people or doesn't, and getting attacked about things that have nothing to do with the quality of the work. That's just, you know, that's just not the point of what they're trying to do. And I understand that, listen, at the end of the day, their dollars, and I'm talking about the anti-diversity individuals, their dollars are worth just as much as mine. And they speak with their wallet the same way that I do. And that message resonates with publishers the same way either way. And it has to. Otherwise, you can't continue to operate. And I worry that there comes a time when they see the writing on the wall and they cave. And I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. And I would love to be overstating these things. Just because I don't want to see, you know, I don't want to see these writers and these characters go away. Marvel just canceled Miles Morales' Spider-Man. You know, never thought I'd see that coming.
I didn't know that.
Is it because Bendis left? Who knows? Like, I just don't want to see the industry react to these people, but it may have to.
Yeah, and it's food for thought, man. And I really think, again, like I'd like to agree with you that like we won't come to a crossroads point like that, but I don't know. I think realistically, I think if there is a moment like that, I don't think we'll have recognized it happened until it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing that really concerns me.
And I mean, that moment could have already happened. Like maybe we just hit it. Like we won't know for a while. And I think as long as the big two are owned by people who are more concerned with the money, you know, as opposed to the diversity of their products, you know, people like Ike Perlmutter, you know, I think we probably already know where they're going to side.
It's tough though, man, because it's like it's easy to take moral high ground when like we're armchair quarterbacks, you know?
Sure.
Because like that's what we're doing. You know, we're saying like, oh well, they care more about money than like doing the right thing. But it's like, yeah, but if the right thing leads to the closure of Marvel, then like it wasn't the right thing. Like your moral high ground is great, but like
I mean that's not true. But I
but
take
like,
your point.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
point.
objectively. Like yeah, right. Like, just because you have the moral high ground, that doesn't save your business, you know? Right. And that's a tough nut, you know? Like, when your job is to run the business.
I mean, what if, and this is just me being hopeful, but, like, what if by denouncing those people, we get an influx of those people who are afraid to just be in that space because the comics fans are shitty people. We get those creators come back. I mean,
it's a big gamble, though, man.
I mean, but that's one I'd be willing to take if me.
I mean, then start your own comics company, like.
Yeah, easy. I can do that.
The thing that I always come back to is that like the people who you know write in defense, or rather who write in support of diversity in comics, don't buy comics. And if you're gonna say, hey, yeah, comics should have more diversity, but when they do it, when they make those changes, you're not. All the social media talk doesn't matter. It only matters on a personal level, right? Ultimately, it matters to Chelsea Kane. It matters to Kurt Busiek. It matters on that level, and it looks bad. But the dollars are what ultimately talk. That's what tells Marvel and DC what we want. That's why David Gabriel said what he said, because he's looking at the dollars. He sees it, right? So if you want to see comics have more diverse characters, more diverse people behind the books, you have to support that. The same way that diversity in comics literally has a whole agenda associated with promoting books that are written by creators who are their type of people. As long as that's happening and there's not anything happening to counter that, it's gonna go that way. In the BuzzFeed article, they literally show how the Phoenix Resurrection comic written by Matthew Rosenberg, how that was a favorite of diversity in comics, and that tweet was inspiring people to go pick it up. And they show you how people were tweeting like, "Oh, diversity in comics has a hashtag move the needle," right? Which is deliberately meant to say, "Hey, we're buying these books, we're talking about them, we're moving the needle. Like, we have impact." And it's showing people using the hashtag to say, "I bought this book because of diversity in comics." There is no counter to that exists in the industry. There is no, "Hey, here's a great book written by a minority creator. Check it out." That doesn't exist. We're not talking like that.
Well, and they do, but they're just smaller. They don't have a platform like diversity in comics does.
I guess. But this article, this is the last thing I'm going to say about this topic. This article by BuzzFeed, great, well written, well researched, and everything like that. No mention of any kind of comic book or any kind of individual who's doing positive things. It's only about the negative. It's only about Comicsgate. Why isn't there some positive half to this piece that showcases what good is being done? Because if you look at this piece will be read by more people than read X comic book in a month. And it doesn't talk about the positive at all. It doesn't reference any book that we could look to right now or any creator that we could look to right now who's doing something good. It doesn't. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good note to end it on, frankly, because it's a problem.
I'm interested in what you guys have to say. I'm sure that a lot of you will not agree, but most of you probably will. But no matter what you feel, I do want to hear your perspective. And if you want to share your opinions and you want to do it in a measured way, we're absolutely interested in reading it on the air when we return next week. And of course, there are many ways that you can share your thoughts with us. First of all, we are on Apple Podcasts, where you can leave us a rating. You can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com, where you can hit us with a random question of the week, a buy or sell, or comment on what we talked about on this or any other episode of the Comics Pals. We are at the Comics Pals wherever your social media is sold. And of course, we are on YouTube, where you can like the video, share it with your friends, leave us a comment, which you guys often do, and subscribe to our channel for more awesome content like this. So with that, let's do some plugs. Pete.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on another episode of the Comics Pals. If you want to get some more content from me, you can catch me on all of our other shows. I'm on the Video Game Pals with Sean, which posts the day after this show on audio platforms and on Fridays on YouTube. I'm also with Cale and Marco on the Riverdale Review, our weekly Riverdale Review podcast, which I think we've got only like one or two more before we take our break again. So
yeah, like 2 episodes, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that. So tune in. This week's episode was it was something. So yeah, come hear our thoughts on it. And then finally, you can catch me on our Monday through Thursday Let's Play show, which is now back, called Pals Play with Thompson from the Video Game Pals. We're back. We did Kirby's Dream Star, or I keep forgetting the name of this goddamn game, Kirby Star Allies last week, and then we're back with A Way Out this week. So lots of fun stuff. Go check it out.
A Way Out of what?
Prison.
Kirby?
Oh, I guess that would actually be. What is the way out of Kirby? That's the real question. Let me write in and let me know. You can let me know on social media at @loud_Pete on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, come talk to me about any of the stuff we talked about today.
All right, Cale.
I'd also like to understand what a dead cat bounce is. That really took me out of this conversation.
Yeah.
You guys don't know? Like, you've never heard that before?
No. Listen, I'm from Hicksville, Texas. No,
that's like a Hicksville thing.
I've never heard that before.
It just means, like a bump, but it's like not sustainable. It's not sustainable growth. It's just a dead cat bounce.
What are you talking about? Why would a dead cat be growing? Why would it be bouncing?
Because it hits the ground and it bounces, Cale, because it's dead.
Okay. Cale, what's your plug?
Jeez, Lou. All right. You can find my comics on selfie.com/panels publishing. Letty Wilson and I have a couple issues of a small comic called From the Deep. If you like monster movies, and especially if you like The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro stole it directly from me. So, come read the original, From the Deep #2. You can find it at, like I said, selfie.com/panels publishing, or on Comixology at panels publishing. .comixology.com, whatever the fuck. You can also find me at Toto Into. That's TOTOINTOW.
Awesome. Marco.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Marco Animoto. I just finished reading Big Kids by Michael DeForge. He's a Canadian writer-artist, and is a really interesting book. A lot of pop art colors, and all the characters are purposefully almost like stick figure-like. It's really trippy. Go check it out. Big fan.
Awesome. As for me, you can find me on Twitter only at Sean Soapbox, where we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I am open. And Phil's, what is he? Cyborg Bebop?
He's
Cyborg Bebop.
That's CYBORG BEBOP.
I like Phil's song better.
How dare you?
And with that, we're the Comics Pal signing off. Take care.
See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
And that's our dead cat bounce.